Sometimes in business, we just need to make tough decisions. We made plans to go in a certain direction, and then over time, we decided for whatever reason that we needed to pivot or make some changes in the direction that we were going. Today, I'm going to talk about a decision I had to make in my business, and then also share 3 tips or 3 things that you should think about before you make a go or no-go decision. So stick with me. Hi, I'm Vicki O'Neill, founder of Kenkay Marketing, and I help entrepreneurs and small business owners who have plateaued in their business identify the obstacles and then create marketing strategies that are ultimately going to drive results in their business. If that sounds like you, you're in the right place. We make decisions every day. They could be small, they could be big. There are things that we just act on, or they're things that we give a lot of thought before actually making a decision. And this can be in your personal life or it could be in your professional life, but we're always making decisions. And this is something that I've done recently. Actually, I talked about it on my podcast episode that I released, my 100th episode, that I wanted to go into some more detail here and just provide some tips on what helped me make the decision to not really go or no go, but really put a pause on continuing to produce my podcast, Connect the Dots. Just like I did when I started my podcast, I researched and I listened to other podcasts and I talked to people, I attended training, I thought through all of the different things I needed to do before I even launched that first episode. The same is true at this point in the podcasting life of kenkay Marketing, that I needed to do some, not really self-assessment, but work assessment in my business. I love creating content. So if you're watching this on YouTube or if you follow me on any of the social media platforms, if you listen to my podcast, I create blog posts, I create a lot of content. And while we were in Hawaii for our honeymoon and just vacationing in October, it gave me some time to think about my business. And one of the things I realized is that I create a lot of content. In fact, if we looked at the amount of time I spent on creating content versus actually working in my business, the scales are tipped more in the favor of creating content. Now, I love creating content because I know it's something that can help you, whether you're having a problem with your marketing strategies or you're having difficulties with what type of content to create or how to connect the dots between your marketing and sales efforts. Whatever that is, I love providing those answers or those solutions or just some things to think about in your business because it's helpful. It's something that you can use to help you make decisions to either go or no go on a marketing strategy, on a sales strategy, or even in your business. But just like everybody else, we need to assess how our time is being spent and the results that we're producing. We have goals. We have to look at the results that we're getting as a result of the actions or activities that we're taking in order to reach those goals. And I realized that I need to be spending more time in my business instead of on my business. So before I made this decision, I did do some self-assessment and really wanted to understand why I chose my podcast as one of the platforms or content producing avenues of my business to stop doing. Now, I know that we talk about passion a lot. You need to work on whatever you're passionate about. And I look at it more as what energizes me. And when I first started my podcast back in December 2018, I was super excited about it. And I talk about that journey a little bit in the 100th episode of Connect the Dots. But in this video, I want to talk more about the different things that I had to think about in order to come to that decision to actually say, I need to make a change. And the first thing that came to mind is I'm just really not energized by creating this content anymore. In fact, when I go to produce an episode and research the content and understand what document I'm going to create, if there's a supporting document that you can download and use, to take action on afterwards. So there's a lot of thought that goes into that, as well as videos and producing content. And I realized that I just wasn't looking forward to it anymore. my passion or my lack of energy is really what ultimately drove that decision. Now, I did have to take a step back and say, okay, am I just thinking that this is the right thing to do, or am I feeling that this is the right thing to do? We get energy from different places, right? So the energy is either coming from your core and something that you're really passionate about, or it's something you're just like, oh, I think I could stop doing this so I could start doing this. So I did decide to look at what was causing that lack of energy. And apart from the fact that I'm just spending so much time on creating content, I knew I had to cut back on some things. So I looked at the podcast, I looked at the blog, I looked at my videos that I upload on YouTube, and then I also looked at the live streaming. So that was probably my least time-consuming avenue. But at the same time, I see more value in the videos that I create and upload and then share on social media versus the live streams or the podcast episodes. I wanted to look at those content avenues that would actually create more value and content that I could repurpose more easily on multiple platforms. One of the things I had thought about is the format of my podcast. I'd actually done the same thing last year and changed the format a little bit. I went from doing a lot of interviews and longer episodes to shorter episodes where it was just me teaching or reviewing something. So I really wanted to challenge the constraints of podcasting and look at the possibilities of expanding that or changing the format. And I felt like I had done what I could do with the podcast right now, at least being on the weekly episode updates and just with everything else on content creation and with my business, year-end audits, that I needed to really just kind of stop doing some things, at least temporarily. So that was the first thing that I did, was challenge the constraints. The second thing that I did was think through the implications of pausing your podcast. I have an active audience. I have people who subscribe and they listen every week. The timing of when they listen varies from person to person. But the thought was, if I discontinue or pause, what's going to happen to my audience who relies on me and who wants to hear the updates or the messages or the strategies or tips that I'm sharing for the week? So in the last episode that I published, which was this week, it was episode 100, I informed everyone that that was going to be my last episode for a while. If they wanted to continue to receive information, then they could subscribe and follow me on YouTube, because I talk about the same type of content here as I do there. So in thinking through all the way of what's the implications, I look at what does failure or loss of an audience look like? And then also looking at, if I continue, what does success or gaining an audience look like? And it really boiled down to what I said at the beginning of looking at what made me passionate or energized me in moving forward. And in everything that I create, that was one of the things that I just wasn't energized by anymore. So when I looked at the failure rate or the success rate of either of those paths, to me, it was worth pausing the podcast right now just to reevaluate and assess why I am not as passionate or energized by creating a podcast as I am with creating videos. So we've heard of a post-mortem, right? This number 2 item is more of a pre-mortem. It's looking ahead to anticipate what that failure or success might look like and then planning accordingly. So that was the second thing that I actually thought through before making the decision to put Connect the Dots on hold. The third thing I thought about was the fact that I needed to simplify. I have a lot of content in different places. And as I mentioned, I think in number 1 is that I needed to look at how I can create the most valuable content for you and get that out to as many people as possible in the simplest form possible. So video, as I had mentioned, was the best way for me to do that while I could still focus on my business and in my business and look at what's actually going to help expand my business versus what's going to feel more of a restriction or something that's holding me back. The last thing any of us need is to pursue something that actually feels like it's shrinking us instead of helping us grow. So that was part of the decision-making process as well. With it being near the end of 2020, it's time for all of us to evaluate our business, analyze results, make goals for 2021 if you haven't already, and then really understand what the obstacles are in your business, what's holding you back and keeping you from actually moving forward to achieve that big goal. Even if it's the 5-year goal, are you on pace right now with the shorter term goals to actually achieve that goal? And now's the time to make that assessment. A lot of people like January 1st as the day to start new habits, to stop existing habits, and also to just start new things. And in order to make that happen, we need to plan and analyze now so that we can create a plan that's actually going to work for us and not against us. That's one of the things that I help my customers do, is to really help them create clarity in their business and get rid of the chaos, so that any marketing strategies that we create together, or I coach them on implementing, that they are strategies that are going to drive the results that they want and help them achieve those short and long-term goals. I love helping people achieve their next level of success. And part of that is understanding all of what goes into your business and what are the obstacles. A lot of times you can't see that if you're in your business, as I know. Same thing, the reason why I had to actually take a vacation to Hawaii in order to figure it out. But sometimes you need an outside perspective to help identify those areas, and then also just come up with a plan, even if it's a creative plan, to make a change in direction in order to pursue those goals that you want to achieve. I'll include the link in the description along with my contact information if you want to connect on other social platforms, or subscribe to my email, which I send out to my subscribers, the latest and greatest, including when I will start back up Connect the Dots and what that format will look like in 2021. What has been something in your business where you've had to really evaluate a go or no-go decision? How did you go about making those decisions? Let me know in the comments. I would love to hear from you. And also, it's an opportunity for other people to learn from others who are here as well. Thank you so much for joining me today. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the bell notification so you know when I upload new content every week. I appreciate you being here, and until next time, make today great.